In the grand opera of Destiny's relational revelations, the intricacies of his discourse on Melina's actions and the enigmatic connection to Seth Everman unfold like a Shakespearean drama, replete with twists and turns that perplex even the most astute observers.
Is she still talking to that loser? Are you going to talk about stuff? Listen, Melina's doing with her life whatever she wants to do with her life. She blocked me on everything, so I don't know what she's doing right now. And I'm trying to like go around and like spiral or death spiral. Are you going to talk about Seth? I shouldn't have vague posted about the Seth Everman thing. There's nothing wrong with that guy. He's just in the same friend group. And it's just that. There was nothing like super dramatic or like that guy's never done anything weird or bad or wrong or anything like that. Yeah, he was just like in the friend group. Did you see it all coming or was it a blindside? Like 50-50, yes and no. Like one of the things I've always talked about with Melina when we fought in the past, and really any relationship partner, is that like at some point, like I don't know if you're going to be able to meet a guy who gives you more attention or more time or more validation or whatever. Like these people historically for me have always been really hard to compete with because I just don't have, one, those aren't traits that I naturally excel in anyway. And then two, because of how much deliberate effort and time it takes, I just can't compete with people like that. It's impossible. Yeah, I can't. Like, I would rather be trying to like Andrew and Tristan Tate were trying to like rizz up my girl and I have to like defend her against them than just like kind of like a quiet dude that is like, I'll talk to you for 20 hours a day and give you like all the attention or validation. Like that's so much harder. There's so much more work. Holy shit. Again, let me be clear though, not to say that like one thing is good or bad or not that like anything is, I'm not saying that her style of relationships or that style of guy is necessarily good or bad or whatever. Different people like gravitate towards different things. Destiny, do you think that because a lot of viewers consider you competent, the expectation is that you can make a relationship work, so failure must be your bad lifestyle? Maybe. I mean, like, I see a lot of people say a lot of weird things about, like, advice I give and shit that I, like, know. I always say this, like, and I've said this a million times, one of the reasons why I think I have a lot of good advice and understand a lot of things is because I've made a lot of these mistakes, and I can literally give you both sides of it. Like without giving too much information on like personals between me and Mel, once things started to head a certain way, I knew exactly where everything was headed. Probably about 2 months, for sure about a month ago, and probably about 2 months ago. I knew every single thing that was going to happen. And I would even argue with, you know, my partner about this, and she's like, oh, well, you know, fine, I guess you know them better than I do, and blah, blah. I'm like, this is like, I see where this is going to go. So a lot of the times, like, people mistake advice as it coming from like, oh, well, I'm going to tell you about the gym because I'm the most shredded guy in the world. Or I'm going to tell you about relationships because my relationships are perfect and blah, blah, blah. That is absolutely not the case. Usually most of my advice comes from a place of like, I know exactly what you're supposed to do here because if you do the opposite thing, I can tell you exactly how it's going to get fucked up and why it's going to, because I probably made this mistake. What did Drake say? Half the time I got it right, I probably guess. Yeah. So, I mean, like, yeah. So some people will like take evidence of like a relationship failing or an issue having like, oh, this is why Destiny doesn't blah, 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 blah. Yeah. But I mean, listen, if the only people you want to follow are people that are successful in a given field, for their advice, you're welcome to do that. But I mean, I would argue it's not red pillars. So, yeah.
Destiny, with the rhetorical flourish of a seasoned orator, delves into the perplexing matter of Melina blocking him across digital platforms, creating a veil of mystery around her current endeavors. It's a digital Byzantine plot, reminiscent of the labyrinthine intrigues of imperial courts, where the blocking of one's digital presence becomes a modern cipher for emotional estrangement. The conundrum deepens as Destiny addresses the spectral figure of Seth Everman, a character entwined in the relational tapestry. The denial of drama or wrongdoing becomes a lyrical refrain, akin to a hip-hop artist disavowing involvement in a lyrical feud. Seth Everman, portrayed as a benign member of their friend group, becomes an enigma reminiscent of historical figures whose allegiances shape the fate of empires. Destiny, in his defense, invokes the wisdom that cautions against making mountains out of molehills, asserting that Seth is not a harbinger of discord. The revelation of Melina's blocking prompts a philosophical reflection on personal agency. Destiny, with the stoicism of a samurai facing a digital battlefield, acknowledges Melina's freedom to shape her narrative. The digital blocking, akin to the closing of castle gates, becomes a metaphor for emotional distance. Destiny, in a nod to the wisdom of Eastern philosophies, acknowledges that one cannot control the winds but can adjust the sails to navigate the stormy seas of relationships. The nuanced response to whether the breakup blindsided Destiny unveils a candid exploration of the intricate dance of attention, time, and validation within relationships. The acknowledgement of past discussions on the possibility of Melina seeking those elements elsewhere becomes a lyrical exploration of relational vulnerabilities. Destiny, much like a chess master contemplating strategic moves, recognizes his own limitations in providing constant attention and validation, juxtaposed against competitors in the romantic arena. It's a humble recognition of the chessboard's complexity, where not all pieces move with the same ease. The declaration that he struggles to compete with individuals who excel in attention and validation becomes a poignant admission of self-awareness. Destiny, in his verbal symphony, conveys the challenges of navigating relationships where one's natural traits and efforts collide with the relentless demands of emotional nourishment. The acknowledgement that he'd be more willing to defend against certain types reveals the battlefield of personal insecurities and relational intricacies. Destiny's discourse on viewers' expectations, like an ancient philosopher addressing disciples in the Agora, delves into the quixotic nature of advice-giving. The recognition of his own fallibility becomes a testament to the human condition, where wisdom is forged in the crucible of mistakes. Destiny, the reluctant sage, humbly offers insights from the wellspring of his own relational missteps, embodying the adage that a wise man learns more from his enemies than a fool from his friends. In the enigmatic landscape of Destiny's relational philosophies, the preference for Tristan Tate, a figure emblematic of Stoic masculinity, over an emotionally available suitor becomes a narrative thread that unfurls with a blend of perplexity and insight. Destiny's preference, akin to a chess move on the relational board, invites a closer examination of the intricate dynamics at play in the emotional arena. The acknowledgement that he finds it much harder to compete with someone providing constant attention and validation reveals a nuanced understanding of relational complexities. Tristan Tate, draped in the stoic armor of emotional restraint, becomes a contrasting figure to the emotionally available suitor. Destiny, in his strategic musings, seems to value the perceived stability and resilience that Stoicism offers over the effusive currents of emotional availability. It's a modern rendering of the ancient dichotomy between emotional constancy and tempestuous expression. The preference for Tristan Tate, when juxtaposed against an emotionally available suitor, unfolds as a commentary on the perceived challenges inherent in navigating relationships. Destiny, the reluctant combatant in the relational arena, may find solace in defending against the stoic counterpart, envisioning a less tumultuous battleground. It's an echo of the ancient wisdom that cautions against the unpredictable tides of emotional turbulence, suggesting that sometimes, a stoic harbor may offer a respite from the stormy seas of emotional intensity. The acknowledgement that he'd be more willing to defend against Tristan Tate introduces a layer of vulnerability into Destiny's narrative. The admission that certain relational dynamics pose a greater threat reflects a nuanced self-awareness. Tristan Tate, standing as a symbol of emotional stoicism, becomes a familiar adversary, one whose moves on the relational chessboard Destiny feels more equipped to counter. It's a strategic calculation, reminiscent of military leaders selecting battlefields where their strengths can be maximized. Destiny's preference, shrouded in the complexities of relational psychology, raises questions about the nature of emotional availability. Does the emotionally available suitor represent a challenge because of the inherent unpredictability of emotional expression? Is the perceived ease of defending against Tristan Tate rooted in Destiny's comfort with Stoicism as a more controlled emotional landscape? These questions linger in the digital amphitheater, inviting contemplation on the diverse paths that emotional connections can traverse. The revelation that destiny foresaw the trajectory of his relationship with Melina adds a layer of prescience to the narrative. The argument about the inevitable outcome becomes a Shakespearean soliloquy, with destiny cast as both protagonist and antagonist in the unfolding drama. The admission of past mistakes becomes a poignant reflection on the inevitability of human imperfection, echoing the wisdom that to err is human. In the grand tapestry of destiny's relational odyssey, the interplay of blocking, the presence of Seth Everman, and the nuanced acknowledgement of relational dynamics weave a narrative that transcends the digital arena. The hip-hop cadence of Destiny's discourse, adorned with historical allusions and philosophical reflections, elevates the conversation to a symphony of human experiences. In this digital amphitheater, Destiny stands as a modern-day troubadour, narrating the timeless ballad of love, mistakes, and the relentless pursuit of self-awareness within the labyrinth of relationships.